Hello there, survivors, and welcome back to ARK Survival Ascended. Today, I've built a breeding pen for the new Megaraptor that was released together with Valguero Ascended. And besides that, the creature has a pretty unique taming method and of course some really cool new abilities. It also means it is a good excuse to build a new breeding facility or breeding pen, which is exactly what I did. And I tried to go with something that I think fits with the vibe of the Megaraptor, which is kind of like a lonely predator and, you know, likes to hunt its prey, likes to challenge someone. So for the breeding pen, I decided to go with a little bit of an arena vibe. Basically, a little fighting pit with room around it to do some of your breeding, you know, get those lines going, have a dedicated room at the back as well for some more breeding, but more importantly, just have a bunch of space to line up a bunch of these creatures. The only downside being their tails are kind of long, so in some cases they will still stick out a little bit depending on how you park it. As always, if you enjoy seeing builds like these and you want to continue to see more, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I really appreciate that and really helps out my channel. And of course, feel free to leave suggestions down below for builds you'd like to see next, and if you would like to see the full step-by-step build tutorial for this one. I'll probably will be working on that pretty soon. So here we are on Valguero, and today I've decided to join us with a Megaraptor in head. If you don't know, they're pretty fun. They've got some cool abilities. They're a pretty fun creature. I just don't like the way that all the feathers on its head kind of get smushed away underneath these saddle ropes, which kind of makes it look like it's a little bit bald. But other than that, it's a pretty cool model. You can go sideways, which is pretty fun. I haven't really perfected any of the other abilities, but seeing that this predator likes to pick a fight and likes to hunt things, I decided to build a little arena here on Valguero in the taiga. I decided that this would be a pretty fitting biome. It's located right over here on the map if you're wondering about this location and you maybe want to check it out for yourself. The location is just kind of like a cliffside here with some pretty cool landscape around it. And that is where I've built this one. Now, as you can see, it's kind of like a fighting pit here in the middle where creatures could battle it out there. And yeah, there's a lot of space to have some of your creatures. As I said, I parked them here facing the middle. That doesn't look the best, of course, because now the tails kind of stick through. Most realistically would be parking them like this. But I thought for the video, that would look a little bit silly, but that would actually be the most practical way, and you could probably park them in such a way that the eggs would drop down, so it's easier to pick up for you if you want to do that manually. But you will be able to have a bunch of them around here if you're doing like proper breeding projects, which I think would be pretty useful, right? So for this one, I've mostly used vanilla structures. I don't think you need any mods to build this. I've used a lot of wood textures, as you can see, a little bit of the wooden spikes along the outside just to give that more fight pit effect. And I've actually used a little bit of the frontier skin and the wasteland skin. I figured that would be quite fitting for this kind of vibe that I'm going for. So yeah, bringing that back, it's not something I bring back often, but I thought for this build specifically, it fitted quite nicely. But of course, you could always use different skins if you prefer those. Yeah, quite happy with the way this one turned out. So it's actually quite a simple build. We have the little arena here, the fighting pit itself. Then to the sides of it, we have a little bit of an extension to both of the sides so that you could have a tame standing there. And then behind it, we have a little building as well, which is basically like a little breeding shed if you want to do it in a closed off space, you know, making it a little bit safer. But yeah, if you're playing on PvE, you could probably have this quite easily, and then maybe have like an oviraptor grabbing the eggs somewhere inside, so they're relatively safe. And again, what you'd probably want to do is actually park these the other way around so that the tails are not poking through the walls. That's probably what breeders would do. I thought it just looked a little bit silly, but now thinking about it, the little tails poking through the walls probably looks more silly. So I think if we'll have this, they are quite good at turning around. That's a good thing. That probably looks a little bit better. Does make for kind of a fun circle there in the middle. But as you can see, you could have a bunch of them up here. Of course, they don't like to be surrounded by other creatures or themselves. But if you're doing breeding lines, I guess this is what you would do. So for the build itself, we got a dino gate here as the main entrance into the fighting pit, but also we have doors here going to the sides. There's not a lot of things going on here in the sides. There's just room for some eggs or kibble storage. We have gene storage here as well, and some general storage here. Then we have these side bits where you could park one of them. Oh, look at him doing a fancy little animation. But yeah, that's an easy spot where you could park them. Again, having a little window here at the back, you probably want to park them a little forward so they're not quite poking through with the tails. Again, the tails really being the issue here. They are very, very long with those tails kind of poking out. But yeah, this is kind of, these parking spots is mostly to get that fighting pit vibe. Kind of feels like these two could jump at each other at any moment now. But yeah, those rooms to the sides, you could of course use for a little bit of crafting, but it definitely isn't designed as a full-on base. We have a little bit of storage, mostly everything related to your breeding and taming and raising of these creatures is what you would have in this place. And of course, here in the middle, you could be breeding even more. Like, there is still room here on the inside. Should be safe unless an RG is gonna fly in, but that's easily solved by having some turrets or plants or something around it, of course. But yeah, quite like the vibe. It does feel like an arena in here. Again, we have a little building here at the back which could be used for some breeding projects. As you can see, you can easily have them here. You can have your cryo fridges back here, of course, and have a nice little hatching spot for the eggs so that you could do that all in safety. We have another dino gate here that you could close off to make sure they are safely parked in there, which is of course what you probably want. And there is even dino gates at both ends, so it's easier to move them in and out. You don't necessarily have to go through the fighting pit every time you want to move them out or in of the base. Then on the other side we have some more room. This is actually kind of set up as a little bit more of a survival setup, so we do have a fabricator, some more storage, and a cooker here. The cooker, of course, also useful for things related to the taming and the breeding. We have a library that you can link to your storages, and then we have another one of these little parking docks. And then over here we have more crafting and storage. We have the generator, another little fridge, and the way up to the next layer. We've got a grill here too, so that you do have a little bit of a setup, but it's definitely not a full-on base here. Mostly really designed to do some breeding if you want to go for breeding of the new creature. A little bit more compact. Of course, it probably would work for different creatures as well. You could, of course, always design it for a different style. Now I've leaned in a little bit more into the fighting experience. Hence, I've used a lot of the wasteland skins for the vibe. But if you would not skin it at all, or maybe use some different skins, you could get a quite different aesthetic that would maybe be more fitting for some different creatures. So there's definitely a few ways you could go about and use this design if you like the shape of it, but not necessarily maybe the wasteland vibes or the Megaraptor vibes. There's a bunch of creatures of similar sizes, of course, that this would work for as well. But yeah, I am quite happy with the way it turned out, and actually quite happy that I've been able to use the wasteland skin again for a build, and actually still kind of like the way that this turned out, which is always nice. You know, we want to be able to use all of those skins. Can I actually jump over here? Oh, I can. There we go. Easy way inside. Yeah, I kind of like trying to utilize these skins and then combining it now with the wooden textures and the frontier textures. I think works quite well to go for something that looks quite unique but feels very fitting, in my opinion at least, for these Megaraptors. And it gives you a decent amount of space to do all of your Megaraptor breeding, so you can get the ultimate hunter to go out on adventures with. And yeah, do all your hunting with as well. I think that's what they go. I don't really know. I've just recently tamed my first two to get a breeding pair on my community server, and I haven't really got it out with it to test it and see what it's useful for, but they do look quite cool. Just a little bit silly maybe with the saddle. I just really think that this looks a lot cooler with the little feathers, and I wish they would poke through the saddle a little bit more, like these lines up here. Yeah, kind of make it look a little bit bold. I think I would have preferred still having a little bit of these feathers going on, but other than that, it's actually not a bad model. I quite like the look of it up close. They are quite terrifying, and I especially really enjoy the little taming game that you have to do to get them. It's quite fun. I like seeing those different types of tames out there. So yeah, let me know if you enjoyed and liked this little build for the Megaraptor, and if you'd like to see a full step-by-step build tutorial, and of course if there's any suggestions for future builds, and specifically whether you want to have breeding pens or stables for a specific creature that you would like to see me try next. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to leave that like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I hope to see you around in the next video or stream. For now, goodbye.